The name of our presentation today is Prop 19 Wake Up Call, the fight to fix it. My name is Robert Galliano, and our special guest is Susan Shelley, and I will do the introduction formally of Susan, but I want to cover the agenda for today. The introduction, which I will provide you in a couple of minutes, then I will provide you with a brief background on Prop 13, a brief background on Prop 19 changes and how they have affected our lives over this last year since it passed, and then how we can help you, but more important is to focus on the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association presented by Susan Shelley as to how we can help our clients, how we can help them get the petition on the ballot so we can overturn the back parts of Prop 19. First of all, I want to introduce ourselves, who we are. We are a full-service estate planning and trust administration law firm here in Southern California, and in California, also up north, and we are fighting for almost 40,000 clients that we have, and we're here. And that's why we wanted to have the presence of Susan Shelley from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association so that we can try again to help our clients and their families preserve and protect their legacies. Our office has been open since 1979. We have 8 full lawyers and 2 attorneys of counsel, CPAs. We have highly qualified support staff, and we have multiple office locations. This is the graphic of some of our attorneys. You can see there's 10 listed on the slide. And this is our fantastic support staff to help all of our clients. And these are our locations. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Susan Shelley. She is the Vice President of Communications for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. She is a taxpayer advocacy, part of the advocacy group in California. She's also a columnist, editorial writer for the Southern California News Group, 11 daily papers, including the Orange County Register and the LA Daily News. Susan's a frequent guest on Southern California radio and TV news and interview shows, and she is the co-host of the Howard Jarvis podcast for KABC. We are so proud and happy and honored to have Susan Shelley with us today. All right, quick background on Prop 13. Back in 1978, a gentleman by the name of Howard Jarvis, visionary, he wanted to stop the taxation of our properties because property taxes were going up astronomically, and therefore he had the vision to stop that huge tax bill that was coming to all of us every year. He was successful in making sure that property taxes were kept low, and the max increase that the state of California could produce on our tax bills was capped at 2% per year. It was an absolutely phenomenal win for all of us, and that was done by Howard Jarvis himself. Then later on, other propositions, 58 and 193, constitutional provisions that really provided for property tax relief by excluding from reassessment the transfer of the principal residence of any value and up to $1 million of assessed value of other real property between a parent and their children and grandparents and grandchildren. This is fantastic. This is what existed prior to Prop 19. Just to give you an example, I am going to assume, for example, that your parents bought a home, a 1,200 square foot home in La Jolla for $50,000, and that was their primary home. The property at that time was assessed at $200,000. So if we just estimate the property taxes around $2,100 a year, at that time, Prop 58 would allow the children to inherit keeping the low property tax. That's the way it worked. And Prop 19 changed all that. How did it change it? Well, Prop 19 put in restrictions on the parent-child transfers. the restriction on transfers from parent's primary home, the parent to child. If the parent gifted the property to the child or they inherited the property, now there was a requirement and there was a value limitation. The requirement was that the child, your child, had to occupy the property as their primary home within 1 year and had to stay permanently in the property to keep the lower tax bill. I do not know how many of your children have ever said, oh, when mom and dad die, I want to go live in their home. It's rare that this happens. And the exclusion was also changed. Now, remember before you could transfer a home, primary home of unlimited value. Now there's the limitation. There's no reassessment on the first million increase over the excess value at the parent's death, but there is reassessment on a value over the $1 million cushion. And all other properties, the ones that are not your primary residence, will have their tax base increased to current value when the death of the parent occurs. Let's move forward. 2023, same house, remember the La Jolla home? Their tax bill was $2,100 a year. Prior to Prop 19, your child could inherit the property, keep the $2,100 a year tax bill. Now, Prop 19 changes. Property is now worth and assessed at $1.5 million. Property taxes are now $15,750 a year. If your child doesn't want to live in the home, which he probably does not, they cannot keep the $2,100 a year low tax bill. They're going to get stuck with having to pay, if they keep the house, $15,750 a year. What a difference. Now, one other thing. I know we're going to be successful. I know that the Howard Jarvis Association is going to be successful. And I know with your help that we're going to be able to put the petition on the ballot, that in case that does not happen, and also the fact that it's going to take maybe another year before we get the vote right in November of next year, the current laws need to be understood because some of you may be facing death and so forth or transfer of property. So it's important that you talk to us so we can discuss the various options that can exist in transferring properties like their primary residence and other properties under the current structure. Now, it is my pleasure to transfer the baton to Susan Shelley. Susan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for being here and listening and caring about this important issue. We are going to fix the bad part of Prop 19. Now, as you may remember, when it was on the ballot in 2020, there was a lot of advertising that talked about helping wildfire victims and helping seniors move to a new home without a tax increase. That all stays. We're not touching any of that. What we're doing is we're repealing the changes to the inherited property rules. We're going to put back what was there before, and we're going to make it retroactive. So anyone who got stuck with a parent-child transfer reassessment will be able to get their old value reinstated. You can't get a refund for the taxes that were owed while it was in place, but it will be retroactive to the extent that you get your Prop 13 value, your $2,100 tax assessment tax base in that La Jolla example, you get that back again. So hang in there if this has happened to you, because we think we can fix this. Let's go to the first slide, see where we are here. Okay, the history and background. Prop 13 passed in 1978, and it said that for as long as you owned your property, the assessed value could not go up more than 2% a year, even if the market value went up 20%, which it had done in the 1970s because of inflation. So what was happening is people were getting a tax bill based on the market value of their home, and the average statewide tax rate was 2.67%. So imagine if you had to pay 2.67% of the current market value of your home every year as a condition of keeping it. Well, people were losing their property and they were pretty upset. So that's why Prop 13 passed. That's why it got 1 million signatures. That's why it went on the ballot. And that's why it passed with almost a 2/3 vote. It has protected taxpayers ever since. About 8 years later, in 1986, people were inheriting property, and that counted as a change of ownership at the time. And property was being reassessed to current market value, and people were very upset because they were losing their property. So the legislature stepped in and created this parent-child transfer exclusion from reassessment. And that was passed unanimously in the legislature in both houses, went on the ballot in 1986, passed with 75% approval. And now it's gone. It's gone because Prop 19 took it away in the fine print because the legislature wanted to raise your taxes. And so they made this deal, and that's how that got in there. And it wasn't advertised, and people didn't know what it was about. And it happened very fast. They finished counting the votes in December of 2020 because it was pretty close. December of 2020, they finished counting the votes. February, it took effect. People in the middle of a pandemic over the Christmas holidays. It was insane how much this hurt people and is still hurting people. And a lot of people don't find out about this until there's a death in the family. And then along with the sympathy cards in the mail, they get a letter from the assessor saying that the property is going to be reassessed to current market value. And here's your new tax bill. It's horrible. And that's why that's why we call it a death tax, and that's why we're going to fix it. So the petition, here's what we're doing. We are reinstating the old rules. It was for a parent-child transfer, or in the event that the children's parents were deceased, it applied to a grandchild transfer. A home of any value and up to $1 million of assessed value of other property. So the assessed value is what's on the tax bill, protected by Prop 13. So it's much lower than the market value in most cases. And the other property applies to any other real estate. It could be a vacation cabin, it could be a small business, a duplex, a small apartment building, a small business property, whatever it is. The first $1 million of assessed value is excluded from reassessment. We're putting that back. So a home of any value, your principal residence, any value, plus $1 million of assessed value of other property, that's what's going to go back into the Constitution. We're going to put back what Prop 19 took out. The petition is available at repealthedeathtax.com, and it is a downloadable, printable petition. This is not one of those legal size things with 8 pages like we did last time. This is one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on any printer. You can do this in your office, in your home. You can go to Staples. You can do it at a library. Anywhere that you can download a file from the internet and print it, you can print a legal, valid petition. The timeline is we need them back by January 16th. We have to turn them into the counties in February. They have to be boxed up in 58 separate packages to go to 58 separate county offices. So it's a bit of processing and logistics to get this all done. So we're asking everyone to get them back to our Sacramento office by January 16th. So once again, the talking points here that I want you to remember: repealthedeathtax.com. Tell everyone you know. Post it on social media. That's the only thing you have to remember, is repealthedeathtax.com. Print the petition. All the instructions are included in the PDF file. We'll go through that in a minute. The timeline is get them back to our Sacramento office by January 16th. The current status is we're a month into this, and they are coming back in bushel baskets. Every day the post office comes to deliver the mail to the Sacramento office, and it's a bin of envelopes every day. So this is working. This is going pretty well. We need to get about 1.2 million signatures. We need 875,000 valid signatures, but in order to make sure we have that, we're seeking 1.2, 1.3 million. If we can get that many, I hope we can get 2 million signatures doing it this way by January 16th. And then we will have this on the November 2024 ballot. And it passes with a simple majority vote once it's on the ballot. Next slide. Okay, I think I went through this already. It allows you the changes that we are making to Prop 19. It does not affect the good parts. It doesn't affect what benefits wildfire victims or seniors moving to a new home. That all stays. All we're doing is putting back what was taken away: the right for parents and children to transfer their principal residence with no ifs, ands, or buts, no requirement to live in it, no cap on the value. Plus, $1 million of assessed value of other property. By the way, this protects tenants, something that a lot of people don't really think about. But when a small apartment building that's mom and pop owned, the mom and pop landlords pass away and the next generation becomes the owner, it's reassessed to current market value. And it's under rent control because it's an older apartment building in California. So it's under rent control. Now there's this huge new tax bill, and you can imagine in most of California what those tax bills are going to be. It's not a viable business. So the new owners, the next generation, are very likely to sell the building, withdraw those units from the market, evict the tenants. And then what? We could lose half the affordable housing in California in one generation because of this. It's completely unsustainable. If the building is sold, the new owner can't make it pencil out, just like the old owner couldn't make it pencil out. Once it's reassessed to market value and the taxes go up and it's under rent control, that is not going to be affordable housing for much longer. So this is really important up and down the state in every community. It's important for owners, it's important for tenants, it's important for businesses, it's important for small businesses, restaurants, hotels, immigrant-owned businesses where they're just holding this as property, not in some complicated corporate structure, and it gets passed to the next generation, and boom, tax bill goes up and everybody's out of business. It's just got to be fixed. Next slide. Okay, when you go to repealthedeathtax.com, and I hope you wrote that down already, repealthedeathtax.com, this is what you'll get. You'll see a link that says click to download the petition, and when you do, you will get a 5-page PDF. The first page, which you see on the left, just tells you what we're going to tell you. It tells you what this measure does and what's in the PDF. And at the bottom, on the bottom right, you'll see a clip and tape mailing label. To make this really easy, all you need is an envelope and you just tape the label right to it. You don't even have to look up the address. There it is. Clip it out, tape it to an envelope, send it back. The second page that you see on the right are the easy instructions on how to do this. Because people are going to download this at home, there isn't going to be a professional petitioner standing next to you saying, sign here, address, whatever. There's nobody to answer your questions. So we are answering your questions, and we'll go through what's on those easy instructions in just a second, but it's all in the PDF. It's very, very clear. Next slide. On the left, you see a flyer. All the purpose of the flyer is because sometimes people say, well, I need to be able to explain this to my neighbors. I want to be able to explain this to my family. And this is just to help you. It's just it's a flyer that has the bullet points of what we're up to here. And it essentially says that parents should be able to transfer property to their children without triggering reassessment and a massive tax increase. It talks about how it helps renters, talks about how the voters were really tricked into passing this in 2020. They didn't know it was in Prop 19. And then at the bottom, you see those QR codes and links. That takes you to the Register to Vote site. If somebody wants to sign, they have to be a registered voter in order for it to count. So you can register people to vote, which is always a good idea anyway, just by going to that Secretary of State website. And under that one is the voter status website at the Secretary of State's office. That's where you can look up how you're registered. Sometimes people ask us, they say, I don't remember if I signed with a middle initial, if I used my maiden name, I don't remember how I registered to vote. You can look it up at voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. And there's the link in the QR code on the bottom left. On the right are the 2 links that go to our websites. The Repeal the Death Tax website is the top right. And below that is if you want to support the campaign and help us buy radio ads and billboards and anything else that we can do to get the word out to people about this important campaign before time runs out. You can donate at that bottom right link. You can also find the donate button at repealthedeathtax.com. And we greatly appreciate your support if you would like to help us. On the right, you see the official top funders sheet. This is a new law that was passed last year, and it requires us to tell you who is paying for the petition collection. It's being paid for by the Repeal the Death Tax Committee, which is a project of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. A top funder is anyone who has given $50,000 in the last 12 months. And that is not happening. This is completely small donations. So this sheet is a little confusing to people because at the top it says valid only for September 2023. That's not the whole campaign. That's just the top funders sheet. That is updated every month. So you will see on October 1st, this PDF will have the October top funders sheet, which is exactly the same as the September top funders sheet. It's not going to change. We don't anticipate that it will change. So what you have to do is show people this top funders sheet before they sign. So there it is. You have seen it. And when you show the petition to your neighbors, you can show them the top funders sheet also, so that they know that there's no evil James Bond villain somewhere on an island financing this. It's just regular Californians with small donations. Next slide. This is the petition. This is the entire petition. This is an 8.5 by 11 regular letter-sized sheet of paper. When you print copies of this, make sure that the top margin is 1 inch or a little bit more. It is here. That's why it's off center, because that's a legal requirement in the state of California. You must have a 1 inch top margin, and the font size is regulated, and everything is regulated. And we met all those regulations. When you print this, some people have asked us about this. Some printers default to fit to page, and then it prints at like 95% of the full size. It will still be valid, because when you print it actual size, the fonts are a little bit oversized. So it's legal either way. But we recommend that you print it at actual size so that any future copies don't get shrunk even more. They do have to have the correct top margin and the correct width. There's a little box there that you can see that says official use only. That empty box on the right on the lower half, that has to be 1 inch wide. The state of California is very picky about these things. They all have to be correct in order for the petition to be valid. But they are valid. This is a legally valid petition that you can print in your house, and you can print as many copies as you want to, and you can give them to the neighbors, and they can sign the petition. And I'll show you how you can be the circulator, or they can be the circulator of your own petition. Next slide. Okay, this is part of the easy instructions, the easy as 1, 2, 3 page in the PDF. You'll see there at the top, it says all signers of this petition must be registered to vote in blank county. Now, the reason we need this is because there are 58 counties in California, and everyone who's going to be validated as a registered voter is a registered voter only in that county. So when we take these petitions to the counties, we have to make sure that we take them to the correct county. If you are having people sign these petitions and they live in different counties, use 2 different petitions. Use one for Los Angeles County, one for Orange County, one for Riverside County. They must be in the same county, because we're going to deliver this to that county, and they have to validate that that's a registered voter in that county. So that's all that is. It's small print because we made it fit, but you'll see it. It's just above the signature block where it says all signers of this petition must be registered to vote in blank county. Just write in the county where they are. All signers of this petition, oh, here we are. This is the signature block here where it says Valerie voter. That's a reminder that everyone who signs this has to be a registered voter, or it won't count. You can register them to vote, but they have to be a registered voter. So you print the name, and below that you sign the name. And on the right, it's the residential address at the top, and it's the city and zip code at the bottom. And that's it. That's how easy it is. It doesn't really matter if someone accidentally writes the city on the top and the address on the bottom, but we're doing it this way. It's the street address and then the residential city. It can't be a post office box, can't be the business address. It has to be the address where you are registered to vote, because that's how they validate that it's a valid signature. You can have 2 people sign each petition. That's all the room we had on it. So 2 people on each petition, but you can send it to us with just 1 signature. You don't have to have 2. If it's easier, you can just fill it out for 1 person and send it in, and that's perfectly fine. Next slide. This is the declaration of circulator. The purpose of this is to have someone attest that this was really the person who said they were who signed it. Now, you can be the circulator of your own petition. So the voter who signed and the circulator can be the same person, or they can be different people. The circulator does not have to be a registered voter. The circulator only has to be 18 years old and can live anywhere, doesn't have to live in California. So here's what, if you're doing this for yourself, then you write your own name where it says Valerie Voter and your own residential address. And then you write in the dates that you have collected the signatures. Those are those two arrows next to each other where it says 9/1/2023 and 9/5/2023. Whatever dates you collected the signatures, write those in, and they can both be the same date. If you do the whole thing on one day, it can all be the same date. Below that, you're signing that you are attesting that that's really the person who says that that is the person who signed it. And so you put the date and the city where you are signing it, where you're attesting to this, and your signature. So once again, let me just go through that because a lot of people have been confused. This is the declaration that the person who signed the petition is the person who says who they say they are. You are just declaring that you did it, you signed it, and you are also the circulator, or you can be the circulator for someone else to sign, either way. But someone has to fill out the declaration of circulator who witnessed the signature. So it's your name, your address, the dates that you collected the signature, start date and end date, the date that you're signing the declaration of circulator, the city where you're signing it, and your signature. And then you're done. Then you put it in an envelope and you get that little mailing label that was on the first page of the PDF and you tape it to the envelope, you put a stamp on it, and you send it to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. It takes 10 minutes. That's it. Next slide. How you can help? Well, you can help by telling everyone you know to go to repealthedeathtax.com and download the petition. And they can get their neighbors and they can get their friends and they can get their relatives to do the same thing. And we have that exponential effect of 2 people telling 4 people, telling 8 people. And that's how we're going to do this. That's how we're going to get 1 million signatures or 1.2 million by January 16th. By people telling each other about this, posting it on social media, talking about it at the holidays, telling everybody to do this, filling it out, sending it in, 1,200,000 signatures, and this will be on the ballot. Okay, the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. Let's talk about that. That's already qualified for the ballot. Now, one of the things that has happened since Prop 13 passed in 1978 is that the government and all of the interest groups have been really ticked off that they can't raise taxes as easily as they used to. They operate on the premise that all the money you earn really belongs to them, and they just let you keep some of it so that you keep voting for them. That's kind of how it operates. They think that the default position is it's their money. So Prop 13 irritates them because not only does it hold down property taxes, but it limits other taxes. It doesn't allow real estate transfer taxes, although the courts have carved that up. It doesn't allow what's called ad valorem taxes, which is another tax on the value of your property. And they got around that by inventing the parcel tax, which is another kind of property tax on top of what you already pay. And it requires a 2/3 vote to raise local taxes. Local taxes didn't used to have to go on the ballot for voter approval, but Prop 13 said yes, they do, and they need a 2/3 vote. And the courts hacked at that. And they said, well, only some of them need a 2/3 vote. If it's a general tax, it's okay with a simple majority. This has been going on for 45 years. A fee is added. And they say, oh, it's not a tax. It doesn't, Prop 13 doesn't control because it's a fee. So over and over again, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and other groups have gone to court or they've gone through the initiative process to close the loopholes. The latest loophole was in 2017. This is the so-called Upland decision, California Cannabis Coalition versus City of Upland. You'll love this. If a tax increase is put on the ballot by a citizen's initiative, maybe the Constitution doesn't apply. What? Well, this was tested in San Francisco and other places where literally people in the government stepped out to the sidewalk with a clipboard and collected signatures for a tax increase. And they said, well, now it only needs a simple majority. It doesn't need 2/3 because of the Upland ruling. And the appellate courts have said, okay, that's fine. We don't think it's fine. The Taxpayer Protection Act puts back what's already in the Constitution, which is the 2/3 vote requirement for special taxes, which is a tax increase that the money is dedicated for a specific purpose. In San Francisco, it was a tax on commercial real estate leases to benefit early education and childcare. So that's a special tax, and it was put on the ballot by this so-called Citizens Initiative, which was actually members of the Board of Supervisors organizing it and running the campaign. Unbelievable. And it passed with 50.8, I think, 50.7% of the vote. And they declared it passed, and the appellate court said fine. So now we have this situation where this giant loophole for tax increases has been created. The Taxpayer Protection Act closes that. It says no matter how it gets on the ballot, a tax increase for a special purpose needs a 2/3 vote. It also has other things in it. It has ballot transparency measures, which require a tax increase to be labeled as a tax increase, which is seems rather obvious, doesn't it? But they tend to label tax increases the We Love Puppies and Kittens Act. And people say, well, sure, who doesn't? Yes. Well, we're taking that away. We're going to make sure that a tax increase is labeled as a tax increase. We're going to make sure that fees are calculated so that they are reasonably related to the actual cost of providing the service. Otherwise, it's a tax, and it has to go on the ballot as a tax. So it cleans up a lot of things like that, and it adds one more really important thing, which is voter approval of state taxes. Currently, state taxes need a 2/3 vote in each house and the governor's signature. This would add a vote of the people. So the legislature could vote 2/3 and 2/3, and the governor could sign it, but it has to go on the ballot for voter approval. All of those things are in the Taxpayer Protection Act. And I have to tell you, the legislature and the governor are not happy. At the end of the session, which was in September, earlier in September, they suddenly proposed a new rule for passing constitutional amendments like this one. All constitutional amendments since 1849, since before California was even a state, the state constitution required that constitutional amendments pass with a simple majority, and all of them have been subjected to that simple majority requirement. The legislature just passed ACA 13, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 13, which says that certain constitutional amendments need more than a simple majority. For instance, any initiative that puts back the 2/3 vote requirement, like this one, like the Taxpayer Protection Act, would need a 2/3 vote to pass. Well, I have to tell you something. We really thought that was going to try to kill us because we didn't think that we could get a 2/3 vote. Even Prop 13 fell just a little bit shy of a 2/3 vote. But they must have done polling, because yesterday they filed a lawsuit asking the Secretary of State to take it off the ballot before the voters have a chance to weigh in on it. The governor and the legislature are suing to get the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act taken off the ballot. It's unbelievable. That's how much they don't want taxpayer protection or government accountability. They're trying to kill it every way they can. And clearly it's polling very well, because people in this state are overtaxed, and it does not need to be easier to raise your taxes. That's what they all want. They want it to be easier to raise your taxes. And this has been the fight since 1978. Will it or will it not be easier to raise your taxes? I think we know where the people of California stand. And I think we know where the government stands. And I want you to know that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association stands for you. And you can be a member of this great organization at hjta.org. You can join online, hjta.org. It's only $15 a year. You get our newspaper, Taxing Times, which will tell you lots of things that the regular newspapers will not tell you, stuff that affects taxpayers, the truth about what's going on in Sacramento. It's really worth it. So $15 a year, you're a member, you strengthen the voice of taxpayers in California, hjta.org. And most importantly, go to repealthedeathtax.com. Repealthedeathtax.com. Tell everyone you know to get the petition and get that mailed back to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And we are fighting for you to make sure that you are never taxed out of your property and never taxed out of California. Do we have another
Susan,
slide? I think that was it.
I have a question, Susan.
Okay.
So what is the action for all of us that are listening on the Government Accountability Act?
Well, it's
What's the
wait
marching order?
It's wait and see right now. It will be on the ballot. Unless the governor's lawsuit gets it taken off the ballot, it will be on the ballot in November 2024. So whatever proposition number it has, it's a vote yes. Even if you're the sort of voter that looks at all of it and votes no straight down the line, this one you want to vote yes. So if you go to the Howard Jarvis website at hjta.org, sign up for the free email alerts. Do that before you do anything else. And then you'll be on the list to get the updates. When we have the proposition numbers, we'll do recommendations to tell everybody what these things are and how we recommend a pro-taxpayer vote. So that's really the best way to stay on top of it. At this moment, this is just going to be a fight in the courts. So we don't have to do anything except watch the lawyers. If you want to support the Howard Jarvis legal team, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Foundation. And you'll see that at the website also, hjta.org. You'll see a button that says make a tax-deductible contribution to our foundation. The foundation pays for the legal work of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. They go to court to hold governments accountable when they pass fees that are illegal taxes and when they pass taxes that are illegal taxes. We're fighting all the time in court to clean things up, and very effectively so. So it's really well worth supporting if you're looking for something as a year-end foundation donation, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Foundation.
Let me step in here.
Okay.
I think by now everybody that's listening understands that we need your help in getting the signatures of the petition. Susan has explained clearly the new methods and everything that they have put into place to make it so easy for all of us to be able to sign the petition. We at Copenbarger, we are encouraging every one of our clients, all you have to do is sign the petition yourself and then get 3 more signatures. Can you imagine if we're 40,000 strong times 3, and then times 3, we can make a difference. And this is the fight that we are so happy to be a part of. Now I am going to turn it over to Susan again for questions. And I think the Q&A, let me see what the questions are. Susan, can you read the questions?
I can. Do you want to read them to me? Because I'm going to have a little trouble scrolling here while I'm...
All right. Let me read the first one, okay?
Okay.
It's from an anonymous attendee. It says, what type of community outreach is happening to get the word out? Last year, the turnout was disappointing, and it seems like a different strategy is needed.
Well, we have a different strategy. We have a 1-page petition. We are doing radio advertising and other types of advertising, digital and email, and lots of radio interviews, lots of media. I'm going to be speaking with Carl DeMaio today at 4:15. If you want to tune in and listen to that on, is it KOGO? I'm not in San Diego, so I don't remember. So we're doing as much as we can to get the word out. Everybody can download the petition in their house, which greatly simplifies the logistics, because of the logistics of printing commercially those large petitions, which were multiple pages and 8.5 by 14, and shipping them to volunteers and having volunteers go out to tables and having people sign them and then having everything boxed up and sent back. That was very slow. That was very expensive. And this time we are trying to revolutionize the process here with a 1-page petition that people can download in their homes. If you don't have a printer, I saw one question there. If you don't have a printer, you can call the Howard Jarvis office and we will mail them out to you. You can call the LA office, which is 213-384-9656, 213-384-9656, or you can call the Sacramento office, which is 916-444-9950, 916-444-9950, and they'll mail it to you. It's easy.
Second question, Susan. I think you've answered this, but the question is, how many signatures do you have at this time?
Well, I don't know. I'm in LA and they're all going up to Sacramento, but we are getting bushel baskets every day from the post office, bins of envelopes coming in, and there are more than we can open every day. We're going to bring on some more contract labor up there to help with the processing. So I don't have a total for you. But when we get to 25%, we have to announce it to the Secretary of State. So as soon as we figure out what we've got, we'll get the numbers out as fast as we can.
The other question is, can the petition be sent in a letter envelope, or does the mailing label need to be printed, or can it be handwritten?
It can be handwritten. It certainly can be handwritten. We just thought it would be easier if we put it in as a clip and tape mailing label. It's not a prepaid label. It's just a first class stamp to do it. So you can certainly handwrite it. Any envelope will work. You can fold the petition. It's not a problem. Any envelope.
And another question from Peter is, what are the chances of the government succeeding removal of, this thing keeps changing on me. I lost the question. Hold on. There's some other questions that are coming through that are scrolling on their own. Peter said, what are the chances of the government succeeding removal of the ballot for 2024?
I don't know. I've never seen a lawsuit like this. It was just filed yesterday. As far as I know, all the lawyers are still looking at it. The early read from John Kupal, who's the president of HJTA, is that it's ridiculous. So it probably is ridiculous. But the governor and the legislature are suing. I've never seen that before. They are suing to stop the voters from having the opportunity to vote on this measure. That is just stunning. And from the people who say that they support democracy, to try and take this away from the voters. Typically, if you think something is unconstitutional, it has to pass before you can file the lawsuit. What do lawyers call that? Ripeness or something. You have to, you can't sue in advance to get it taken off the ballot. You have to see if the voters will pass it, and then you can sue if you think something isn't right. And by the way, then there's severability clauses in these things. So if one thing is ruled unconstitutional, the rest of the measure stands. Maybe that's what they're afraid of. They want all of it out. And this is just stunning. So uncharted territory. We'll see what happens.
Next question from Rita. Is each petition sent back in a single envelope?
You can send back as many as you'd like in an envelope. I think our people waited, and depending on the paper you use, you can send 5 or 6 in one envelope for a first class stamp. But you can, whatever you want to do is fine. You can send them back in a box if you'd like to.
Another question, this is from Susan. Since the government is so picky on the petition, want to make sure the margins. You said 1 inch top margin, 1 inch top margin. What are the margins for the sides and bottom?
The sides and the bottom are not legally mandated, so that doesn't matter. The top margin has to be 1 inch. And really, it'll be one. We made it a little more than 1 inch, so even if the petition is printed a little bigger or a little smaller, you'll still be fine. But we were concerned that people would take it to a copy store and slide it up so it would be centered top and bottom and look pretty. Don't do that. That makes it an invalid petition. I guess they're putting them in clipboards or binders or something with a top attachment, and so they need a 1 inch margin at the top when the counties process this, and that's a legal requirement.
Dan and Barbara are leading the pack. They want to know if they want to set up a table by the grocery store. Do you have a sign they can use to attract voters?
You know, we haven't really done that because we're encouraging people to print it at home rather than to table. But I'm thinking I should put the artwork for a sign on the website so that you could just go over to a FedEx office or a Staples and get it printed at, they're not very expensive to print like a 3-foot sign. And if I put the artwork, a PDF of the artwork on the website, maybe that would help. But we're not doing what we did last time, which is setting up tables statewide and sending out packages of materials. Last time we sent out signs and flyers and pens and everything you would need to do a table. that was very expensive. This time we're spending the money on radio advertising to get the word out that people can print this. This is really important. I don't want anyone to underestimate the difficulty of reaching a statewide audience in California, the most expensive media markets in the country. 22 million people to reach, 22 million registered voters in this state to reach in 4 months. This is very challenging. And that's why we are spending our resources on advertising to reach the voters and tell them this is happening so they can tell people, And while it's great to have tables and banners, the scale is too small to reach everybody doing that. And the price is too high relative to the number of people you reach. So that's the situation that we're in. And that's why we're counting on our volunteers. And we greatly appreciate all our volunteers. We're counting on our volunteers to shift their thinking a little bit and concentrate on spreading the word rather than sitting in the sun at a table trying to talk people into signing. Because one-on-one like that at a table, the volume doesn't get there. We got 400,000 signatures last time, which is excellent for an all-volunteer effort. And we had more than 10,000 volunteers out there doing this, which was incredible, but it wasn't enough. So we had to shift. We had to have a new plan. And that's what we're trying to do what we're trying to do here. Get the word out, get people to print it themselves in every corner of the state, and help us spread the word.
We have another individual family that is in the fight. This is from Mark Matta. He says, thanks for your hard work to make this easy to do. My family of 6 and I collected 100, maybe 1,000 of signatures to repeal the government a couple of years ago. We need a petition that has 5 to 10 signature spaces on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, please. So,
well, it's not physically possible to get that on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. Every petition is legally required to have the title and summary and various other boilerplate language in addition to the signature blocks on the same page. It's required. The laws on this are very picky. So we can't just attach another page of signatures. We would like to, but we can't. We can't put more signature blocks on the back because then it would be difficult for people to print two-sided. We're trying to make this really simple so that everyone has the same petition, and we're telling people they can make copies of it, which they can. But if we were to put this on a 14-inch piece of paper and tell people they can make copies, and if it was reduced in size on the copier, none of those signatures would be valid. So that complicates things for everybody. What we want is for everyone to sign this in their house. 2 signatures is all that would fit, and that's how it has to be. So I appreciate your concern about the longer petition with more signature blocks, but all I can say is use more petitions. I know it's a bit of a pain to have to fill out the declaration of circulator for just 2 signatures, but this is the trade-off to do it this way and reach the whole state in this very tight time period.
This is the follow-up from Mark. He says, then can you put the petition onto a legal size sheet? We need to have an option to collect signatures en masse.
It's not possible. It's not possible. It's got to be 2 signatures on this petition, and the declaration of signature has to be filled out for every 2 signatures collected. And that's how it has to be. Thank you for the concern, and thank you for your hard work the last time. It's greatly appreciated.
I think, Susan, what you see is there's a lot of people that are involved in really, really, really wanting to get this thing accomplished this time. And we have the public, the ground roots, our clients are all behind this, and we're trying to do everything that we can to make this thing happen. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide, and once again there are a lot of people that don't understand how Prop 19 works the way it is today, and we're going to be putting on an enhanced in-depth webinar on the current Prop 19 rules. This will be the 4th or 5th time that we've done this presentation. And we want to make sure that anybody that's interested to understand what the current Prop 19 rules are, then call our office, sign up for this webinar that we will be doing in a couple of months. That particular webinar will be explaining the guts of the current Prop 19 as it stands today. All of you are going to receive an automated phone call asking if you are interested in setting an appointment. We're available. Remember, there's 10 lawyers available to be able to meet with you and answer any more questions that you might have regarding Prop 19. And one other item that I have to make a mention, then if you look at the screen on the right-hand side, there's a little blob there that says digital evaluation. If you check the link in the chat box, there you will see an evaluation. I think it's about 3 or 4 questions, and you can then tell us how we did, what can we do to make our webinars more informative, what you like, what you did not like. But we'd like to hear from you because your feedback will help us to do a better job next time. And now I think from myself and Copenbarger, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Susan, thank you for everything.
Thank you. It was a
And
pleasure.
we will then see you in the fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.